book number 2.
Well, it sounds like the recording has started.
Yeah, but it has started, so don't say anything you don't want recorded. So I went to the CCIM thing on whenever I went, Wednesday, Barry, and you had an office broker talk about the office market, industrial, retail, and investment sales, and an economist. And, it's so reminiscent of 2007. I mean, everything, they were waiting for me to get up and talk about doom and gloom, which, of course, I didn't, except for food halls. So it just was the over-exuberance in all asset classes for South Florida was just crazy.
Wow. Sorry.
No, as a positive, like everyone is just extremely positive about the prospects, or?
Yeah, they're saying that there's no recession coming. Interest rates will stay low. They're expecting by the end of 2030 for Florida to have over, I think, 30 million people in Florida. The Economist joked that Florida and Texas should do something called, what did he call it? What did he call it? Flexit, like to rhyme with Brexit, but Flexit. Like Florida and Texas should, secede from the union. It's very funny. But,
well, if for those that lives in Texas, that they already think they're not part of the union, so they.
Yeah. Oh, and also a multifamily panel. So every asset class was just, booming in South Florida. So I got up there. I was the last speaker, and I said, my son's a rapper, so I know about rappers and rap songs. And there's a song by Big Sean and Drake called Blessed, and that's what we should all feel living in South Florida after the 5 speakers I just heard.
Wow.
Crazy.
I mean, it was exuberant.
ICSC should be a heck of a show this year then.
Yeah, I just posted on our local. We have a South Florida Idea Exchange where people, share ideas of listings, etc. That just a reminder, if people don't know, that Vegas starts on Sunday this year. The booths are open on Sunday, and Florida ICSC for our group is important. It's a week later this year. Barry, did you know that?
I think I saw that. Yeah. They need to move. They need to swap New York and Orlando, personally. I really wish they would do that. Just get Florida's later in the year out of hurricane season. Actually, a week later last year would have been an absolute disaster because I think that's when we had the hurricane that went through Central Florida. It was like a week after we had it. So that would have been like right in the middle of it.
Yeah. All right. It's 11:30, Mr. Parsons. You're on.
All righty. Well, to everybody that is on the call, this is our monthly Rockstar Book Club, and we have a special guest today. Beth Azor is our guest, and she is the author of the Retail Leasing Playbook. And Beth has decided to donate her time today to answer some questions, kind of give us, basically open up her brain a little bit, and we can dive in and all learn a little bit from her experience and, her mistakes and her positives and negatives and everything else. And so for those that are on, we'll kind of just dive right in. So Beth, we kind of talked about this initially before the call, but one of the sections in the book that I think was perhaps one of the most valuable ones is when we get to the call sheet. And I think it's on it's chapter 34 that call sheet And what I think was so valuable about it was simply because it really can touch, it really can be used by anybody in commercial real estate, or for that matter, in sales, for that matter, in all classes. So where do you see people using that regularly around the industry? And where did this, where was the genesis of the idea?
Sure. And by the way, my co-author, Jill Ratson, which without her, I could have never written the first or the second book, because she literally wrote the words that were in my head. She's also on the call. So thank you, Jill, from the bottom of my heart for helping me reach these
Sorry,
goals.
Jill. I apologize for not acknowledging Jill. I apologize. Sorry.
No worries. It's an honor to write what's in Beth's head. Let me just say that. An honor. Easy.
So I didn't know she was going to be on the call. She just ran the Disney Marathon. I thought she'd still be in bed. But so we're blessed to have her on the call as well. But as far as the call-in sheet, so where it came out of, I believe, and I think I created the call sheet or the list of questions when I was a rookie, because I think I would go take deals to my boss and say, I think I just got a live one. And then he would send me back and say, well, did you ask this? Did you ask this? Did you ask this? And I'd say, no. And he would send me back. And I think I accumulated those questions until, and they probably hung in my cubicle until I started, having them memorized so that I could ask all of the questions, so my boss didn't keep sending me back. And then I probably had them memorized. Then the list went into the garbage. Then I became more of a veteran. Then I became the leasing director. And then I had a team of 8 to 12 leasing agents, and they would bring me deals. And then they would bring me deals, and I would say, did you ask this? Did you ask this? Did you ask this? So then I created the sheet and gave it to the leasing agents, and which was very valuable, again, when you're rookies. And I do think that sometimes vets stop using it. Now, I will tell you, Greg asked me this yesterday. We had a little prep call, and Greg said, how many people do you think use this? And I would tell you that it's one of the things that bosses tell me that when they come back from the Rockstar workshop, that they see it hanging in their people's cubicles, and also that it also is something that people tell me was the biggest help from the workshops, when they come to the workshops, because that's up until my digital class, which is going on right now, and before the book was written, I didn't, the only people that really got that were people that were in my workshops. But now it's available in the book and in the digital class. So I think more people will use it. And the thing that I preach so much about qualifying is these questions allow you to qualify. And I always say, when does the leasing agent have the most leverage? The leasing agent has the most leverage in the whole deal process before they give the rental rate. Because up until the time that the leasing agent gives the rental rate, the prospect is trying to impress us, right? He's trying to say, oh, I have money in the bank, and I don't need a cosigner, and and then I always say, well, why did you call on my shopping center? Oh, well, I love the traffic. They just tell you all these things to impress you, and then the minute you give the rental rate, it's like pulling teeth to get information out of them after you give them the rental rate. So I think having the list with the accumulation of all of the questions, and then I also said to Greg yesterday is, I know that people go, well, people get mad, like they get irritated that you keep asking them a lot of questions. And I say to the leasing agents, make it, use this as a test. The people that get mad are usually the people that are not serious. Like I said to I said to Greg, if Danny from Shake Shack called me about a space, he would be thrilled that I was asking all of these questions. If you have a serious prospect, they're happy to answer all of the questions. But the ones that get irritated or impatient, I find aren't real. They're not real serious.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that speaks volumes. And really, what it does is this sheet really prepares you, and it prepares the business relationship to be a really strong partnership, and to truly understand the other side, really turning the conversation about them to learn as much as we can about them, is going to reveal so much more than simply what's the questions that are answered on that sheet. Because you can create a business plan based on this information, and really, at least from the local leasing side, understanding the retailer's business and really putting them in a position for success, whether it be with your property or somebody else's, I think speaks volumes. And the more we do that, I think the better off all of us will be, because we'll be educating more entrepreneurs and retailers better, and hopefully educating them and then putting them in a better position to have a real estate conversation, but be confident that they're able to expand and not be afraid to pick up the phone to call the mall or call a shopping center and to learn, and not to be scared to call the big bad mean landlord, and where they feel like they're going to get gouged for every single penny that they have. So kudos to you to kind of putting this together, because I think it's really talk about it. I mean, it's kind of what you would need for real estate 101, more or less.
Well, and I think that and when you're when you're a vet and you're now running around with 20 or 30 properties and you're getting 20 phone calls a day, we vet, me included, and I don't have 20 or 30, but if I'm short on time, we get out of the habit of asking all of these questions. We say, okay, well, what's your use? How many square feet do you need? And do you have another location? But that's not being a rock star. Being a rock star is then saying, the really most important question I think on the sheet is, why'd you call on my center? Because before you give the rent, when you ask them, why'd you call on my center, they tell you the true, authentic, honest reasons why they called on your center, which then, 2 days later when you're in the space showing it, all of a sudden when all the objections start coming out, the objections will be completely the opposite of why they called on your center. Like for Shops of Arrowhead, one of my centers, when I say, why'd you call on the center? And they go, oh, we love the traffic. The traffic is just unbelievable. There's so many people here, yada, yada. Then, 24 hours later, I'm showing them the space. What do you think the number one objection is?
Parking.
Right, no parking. Well, is it true? Yes, I do have limited parking, but does the prospect like the fact, which is more important? So I think that the more important and honest answer is the traffic, not the negative. I think obstacles and I think objections that are created when you're in negotiations, nobody wants to buy anything fast that is of high value. There's nobody that's going to walk into my vacancy and go, I'll take it, send me the lease. It's just never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And if that does happen, that deal's not going to go through. I mean, I've been doing this for 34 years. It's extremely, extremely, extremely rare that someone walks into the space and says, I'll take it, I'm going to sign a lease. And like Barry's on the phone, no one, if anyone's going to buy a $10 million shopping center or, a $5 million freestanding building, they're going to negotiate and they are going to come up with objections. And usually what they do is they come up with objections that aren't really truly objections, but they're ways to slow down the process for them to kind of get their arms around the idea that they're about to spend a crap load of money. So that question of, why did you call in my center? What did you like about it that you called is so important. And let them tell you all of the reasons. And then, I don't say, well, I don't make them wrong when I'm showing space. Well, you said yesterday that you love the traffic, and now I don't say that. I just know in my brain that this is just, subterfuge. This is just a delay tactic because they are very interested and they're just slowing up the process. And then the other questions, what I find also, now vets are less likely to do this, but rookies do this a lot, is rookies are afraid to ask the tough questions. Rookies are afraid to say, how much did your last restaurant build out cost? And, what is your budget for your occupancy costs for rent? And are you signing the lease? Oh, by the way, are you married? Because we require a personal guarantee and we need your spouse. I mean, rookies are so anxious to do deals that they'd rather just kind of push the deal ahead and get to the showing of the space and think, I'll get to those tough questions later, where I want all of the tough questions to come out on that first call, because the one thing we don't have enough of is time. And, I'm okay if rookies want to practice showing space. I don't mind that because I think that's an exercise in learning, but I also want them to learn about time management. And, you got to ask, the quicker you get in the habit of asking the tough questions early, the quicker you're going to know if you have a deal or not.
And the quicker you're going to know that if you do have a deal, that deal is actually going to have staying power.
Right.
We can do deals all the time, and, within 6 months, door closes, falls apart, whatever the case may be. So the more discovery work you put in the front end, it is absolutely critical, because it really will put you in a better position, not just for the retailer, but as your property in a whole, to minimize vacancies, short-term and long-term. It helps.
Right. I mean, when I was leasing, when I had a big leasing team, or even now with Kara, if she brings me this sheet and it's fully filled out, I know within 3% if it's a deal that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because she's got all the information. And if it's half filled out, we don't know. And it's going to take a few more phone calls, a few more meetings, yada, yada. So the more information you get on that first call before you give the rent, the quicker you'll know, or your boss will know, if it's going to be a real deal.
Good deal. So, Beth, it's interesting, because what I've learned and known about you for the brief time that we've known each other, I tell that you really love to teach. Like you love to educate, you love to see, to help, the newbies, the rookies, the veterans, everybody in the industry to learn about the industry better. And this book is a brain dump of just your experience over 30 plus years being in the industry. Why do you feel like this book needed to be written?
Because there isn't one, right? I mean, there's I think one or two very dry academic books that I guess are available, older and more, and has more to do and talk about like malls. I have never been able to find something that teaches what I've learned and what I've been taught over 34 years. I can't find, there's definitely sales books everywhere, right? You can pick up probably 10 million different books on sales, but there's no book that talks about how do you go into a retail store and ask a mom and pop if they want to expand, right? There's no books about that. And so I learned early on when I was training, my leasing agents, at Terra Nova, the only way I could build the company was to bring in kids that didn't know anything about leasing and teach them leasing. So that's how we built the company, and that's how I built the team, and I had to train them. So I created training programs, but they were never really written down. It was like Bethisms. and I'd have them sit in my office. We did have a program. It was a 1-year program, and other companies, then my trainees would kind of leave us and go to other companies, and people always loved to hire the kids I trained, so I knew that, they were producers. And then when I left Terra Nova and the phone started ringing and people said, we want you to come train our people, I just knew that, and after I would do a workshop, they would go, a lot of people would say, when's the book coming out? When's the book coming out? You need to put all of this in a book. And I was an English literature major in college. I always thought I was going to write a book one day. I didn't know it would be about retail leasing, but I thought there was a need. And based on the success of this book, the first book that Jill and I wrote, we wanted to write this book, but I was very scared, and I knew it was going to take a lot. This took a lot more than the first book. And I thought, and Jill and I talked about it, and I said, let's just do, Don't Say No for the Prospect was a thing I say all the time, and we had so many stories. I said, this could be a fun, easy book, 100 pages, and let's see what the process is. And if it's not a big deal, if it doesn't take too much brain damage, then we can do the real book, which was this book. So, because Jill, and I'd been after Jill for a long time to help me write a book, but she, had a busy career and a company and a family, and it just worked out well that a year, 14 months ago, we were able to work on Don't Say No for the Prospect. We've sold, I think in a year or 14 months, we've sold 400 Don't Say No for the Prospect books. We've already sold over 250 Retail Leasing Playbooks in the first month. So that tells me the need for this book.
Interesting. So that leads me to, so you've written the first, now you've written the second. Are you going to finish a trilogy? Is there a third book on the horizon?
Well, do you know what my mission is? Do you know what my mission is with leasing agents? What's my mission? I know Barry knows my mission. I don't know, Greg, if you know my mission.
I don't think I know
the mission.
Okay, what's the mission?
All right, it's Jill. We got to turn everyone into retail investors.
Right. So my mission is that leasing agents, and I think Barry would agree with me that if it wasn't for leasing agents, Barry wouldn't be selling shopping centers, and mortgage brokers wouldn't be financing shopping centers, and architects wouldn't be designing shopping centers, and the people that least invest are the leasing agents. And without them, the industry would stop. And it bothers me tremendously that leasing agents don't invest. I just had a call yesterday with a guy that's been in the business. He's a rock star. He's been in the business 20 years. And he found a deal, and he called me because I've been harping on this, and he heard me, and he's going to put in his first proposal today, and he's a little scared because he's never done it, but that's okay, and I'm going to help walk him through it and help him find some money to do it. But I'm so happy because all the leasing agents should be doing this. And so I don't know if I'm going to write that book because that's going to, I think that book has been written by Gary Rappaport from the Rappaport Company, so I don't really think I need to write the book. But maybe we'll do, in something about investing. I don't know, but I'm not sure. But for right now, I'll tell you, 2 books in 14 months, Jill and I are definitely taking a break. Right, Jill?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Working this book now. It's great. It's a true business partner. Good enough, for now.
Good deal. So what's been interesting about the book, I read it over Christmas while we were, basically hibernating for 2 weeks. And, I've actually implemented some of these strategies just over the last couple of weeks. And it's interesting how really easy they are to do. And I'm not saying but but they work, and that's what's interesting about this book is it's the playbook, the roadmap, whatever you want to describe it. But just taking some of these strategies that you talk about and really implement them into into the fabric of your workday, you will see benefits and results very quickly. And I mean within days. For example, I did the canvassing route this past week, and Beth gets in the book, Beth says, the best thing you can do while canvassing is getting lost. Get lost in a market, try to figure out where you are, and if you're lost, you will then, your eyes will be a lot more open, you'll see more, you'll discover more, and you'll just be more open to additional ideas. So I got lost in Dickinson, Texas 2 days ago. And lo and behold, I found somebody that I wasn't expecting, connected them with them on Facebook. We have a showing at a space next week for one of our. And I mean, so that's just a practical example, but this stuff works, and that's why I think your book needed to be written, because yes, you're educating the public of different strategies to implement. But what I think people truly need to understand, not just from this call, but from reading the book, is this stuff works. And it works quickly, and it's easy to implement. It just takes a little bit of dedication, some discipline and time. And and that's where I think for the biggest part about this, I want to say thank you for writing it. Thank you for giving us the voice to really show us how to be successful in our careers and our positions, because this isn't just something that you do for shopping centers in Florida. This isn't something that you do for malls in Texas or Missouri or Ohio or wherever. This is things that can be implemented on every level in pretty much multiple industries. I mean, we're talking about commercial real estate and shopping centers, but this is a book that I think can really transcend different industries across, within the country. And so, I mean, it's just thank you for doing this. And it really, I mean, I feel like a much stronger leasing agent because after reading it, and really just be kind of getting to study and learn from you and kind of be able to truly see what's in that head of yours. And so that's just been I wanted to say that while we're on the call, because I think it needed to be said. But yeah, these strategies are very easy to implement, and they work 50 to 60% of the time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I loved doing it. Again, I couldn't have done it without Jill. And I love, what we're doing is we're starting a podcast, I think, in the next 2 weeks. And every week I'm going to, I already do some, we put this book club on Anchor, ANCHOR. It's a podcast hosting site. What I'm going to start doing is every week I'm going to take 1 to 2 chapters and talk about the chapters. And then because there's 69 chapters, we'll be able to fill the year with me talking about concepts in the book throughout the year. And throughout the year, we can figure out how to have guests.
Justin, this is David.
I want guests to.
I was calling about 6300 Westgate Road. I sent you double checking about
let's mute your line.
Drive-in. And my client was also curious about.
He's calling for space somewhere. So anyway, doing a podcast to talk about a couple chapters each week, and be a little more thorough, or maybe tell more stories, and then have people on the call. Greg, maybe when I get to chapter 34, I'll have you back, and we'll talk about, the call-in sheet. So if anyone is on the call that wants to participate in the podcast on a particular chapter that they liked or they got benefit out of, let me know, because I think it's good to share. Everyone shares experiences, but I just think that would be an additional help, because I'm not going to do an audiobook on this book. We did the audiobook on Don't Say No for the Prospect. It was 2 days, we put probably about 12 hours into the recording of it, and then, a lot of investment into the whole editing and putting it on audiobook. And Greg, guess how many people downloaded the audiobook?
Oh, God. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, throw out a number.
500.
7.
Really?
So, so much to those 7 people's unhappiness, because 4 of them have already asked me, when's the audiobook for this one coming out? This, with over 244 pages, it would probably take me 4 days in a studio. And we just didn't get the response. So I'm good with that. People are just going to, and I think it's good because this one, it can be, I want it to be the playbook, right? I want it to sit on your desk. I want you to be able to go, oh, I'm having a problem with this. What does Beth say? Let me go to that chapter. So,
yeah, this book would be very difficult to be of value on audio. I mean, there's parts that would work, but because it is, like you say, the playbook, and there's a lot of graphic examples of like your Facebook conversations and your marketing flyers and the call-in sheets and those things. That's hard to translate, and it would be very difficult on an audio play to really get any value out of it. But like you said, this is one of these books that just kind of sits by your computer, sits by your desk, and if you need to pull it up and pull it out and get some inspiration, like that's what it's for. And I think that was kind of your intention when writing it.
Yeah, for sure. I want it's a legacy. This will for sure be my last decade in the business. I don't see any Beth Azors out there preaching about retail leasing and canvassing behind me. I would love someone maybe on this call to follow in my footsteps, but I don't see a lot, because it's time, right? I mean, I like doing deals too. I just happen to also like teaching. But so if there's no one coming up behind me, and this is going to be my last decade, pretty much, look, I've been using, Facebook, I've only been started using in the last 2 or 3 years, but everything else in this book is pretty much 30 years old. It's been working for me for 30 years. So hopefully it'll stay around longer than me, and people, in decades coming, like Tara going forward will be able to use it and refer to it if they hit a stumbling block, and they can say, what was Beth's experience? What were her tips? What did she suggest?
So as part of this call, we always have, the interviewer is always kind of leading or guiding the conversation, but we really want engagement from those that are on the line. And, so I'm going to open that up to the callers in. And if you guys have a question, no question is unwarranted to Beth. I think this is a great opportunity just to pick her brain, and whether it be with regards to the book or different strategies, and now is the time. So I'm going to open that up. Anybody else have any questions for Beth?
Great. I would just second what you said initially. This is very just phenomenal information, and a lifetime of stories and successes, and we all have failures and things we learn from. So Beth shared that with us, and it really is, like you said, just a fantastic gift. And just tons and tons of information when you combine the two books. And I'm going through I've read the first one. I'm going through the Retail Leasing Playbook, and learning a ton, and lots of things we can all execute on. Certainly.
Thank you. You
My
guys
pleasure.
are my favorite.
Hello?
Did somebody else have a question?
I think
Hey, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So in one of the chapters that you had talked about, you talked about relocating a destination tenant that could be in like an impulse end cap kind of spot to further in line in the space, or moving them to like an elbow. So that way you could find a different kind of tenant to bring more traffic in for an end cap space. How do you approach those conversations?
Sure. So the first thing I want to do, I want to find someone that will backfill. I don't want to relocate a tenant unless I have a backfill for that tenant space, because an owner, or if you're the owner of the shopping center, you don't want to spend the money unless you know for sure that there's someone that wants the space that he's giving up, right? So that's step one. So if you say, okay, I've got a physical therapy and an end cap, and Panera and Starbucks and H&R Block, or whoever, they're calling me for that end cap, I know I can lease it if I have it available. Okay, check. So that box is checked. So now you go into physical therapy and say, hey, how you guys doing? You've been here 4 years. Are you thinking about renewing? How's business? And they might say business is great. We'd actually like more square footage, or business is not great. We might want to downsize. You have those conversations, and then they'll say, why are you asking? And then you say, well, you're in 3,000 square feet, and we have 4,000 square feet, in the vacancy, down the way. I wouldn't tell them the elbow, right? So, because these tenants don't know that we think, many of those tenants don't know the challenges. They might know that the space has been vacant, but they don't know that it's an industry-wide problem. So, and they might say, well, I would never want to go there because there's not enough, the parking is limited, or the exposure is not as great. But sometimes what I've done in certain centers is I've done like a band signage where I connect the band signage from like one wing to the other, to where actually the guy ends up having, the guy ends up having better signage than he did in the space where he was at. So, and then because if you can backfill him for more rent, which has been my experience, if you have an impulse space versus a destination space, you can get more rent. So if physical therapy is paying $15, and I think I can get $20 from Panera, then I might, and I've had this elbow space empty for a year, I don't mind taking the guy from 15 to 10, right? So I say, so if you're, do you want to go down and see it? Either do you want to expand or downsize, and I can work with you on your rent. So I think it's important, do they want to expand or downsize? Either or I'm good with. Like if you wanted to downsize and go to 2,000, maybe what I would do is split the space. Again, economics, construction costs, you'd have to see if it makes sense. But if the guy downsizes, then maybe you don't have to drop his rent. You keep, maybe go from 15 to 14. But again, the first step is making sure you can backfill his space. Does that help?
Yeah, that's very helpful. We ran into a similar situation, and just I wasn't sure how the easiest way would be to approach it, given that I'm newer, and then also just the tenant's reaction, and kind of approaching it in that matter makes it seem like everybody's winning afterwards, sort of deal. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the first step is making sure you have a backfill, because if you go walking into your boss's office and say, hey, I have this idea, we should move the physical therapy guy into the elbow, your boss is going to go, why would I spend that kind of money? And I should drop his rent. So the key is, hey, boss, look, I just got a Panera or, a great tenant to take the physical therapy space at ABC Plaza. Here is a signed LOI contingent on us getting possession of the space. what do you think about me going and talking to the physical therapist about relocating into the Elbow and dropping his rent to make that happen because he's paying $15 and I just got a signed LOI with Panera at $23, right? And then your boss says, sounds great, or let me call the owner, or so that's, that's rockstar thinking. But you got to have the backfill tenant in your pocket.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Beth, you show some of the flyers that you have for your properties in the book. In the book, some examples. Who creates them, and what software are you guys using to create them? I know some larger developers will have their own flyers and their own marketing departments that use them, but the majority of shopping center owners aren't a large corporation and are doing this on their own. So just curious to know kind of how you're able to put all that together, and what you're using, who's doing it, and how it all can be.
Well, so I'm not a large company, right? And we started with one center, and now we have 6. Josie figured out how to do it. I think I have no idea, and if she can jump on the speakerphone, because I know Kara is at a showing, so Kara now does them. We also have a woman that if we need, to make it look a little more professional, I like to have lots of colors, and I don't lean towards the corporate branding, muted colors. I want the thing to jump out at a tenant when he gets into his office and he goes to the back of his store, and it's this bright red, colored flyer that has valuable information to the prospect. He doesn't care what company I'm with. I put my name and my number on it at the bottom so I don't have to staple my business card. I like to have the site plan. I think that's important. But all this, this copy, quote unquote, that people put on their flyers about things that aren't important. Now, we just added on one of our flyers hospital visits at a hospital across the street from our property, 1.2 million visitors a year. That's not even in the demographics. I've been leasing this property for 3 years and didn't even think to call the hospital to ask how many visitors they get a year. And we're targeting restaurants. So we added that recently to our flyer. But Josie, are you on? Do you know what we use? I have no idea. I certainly don't do the flyers.
I am.
Okay. How do we make them?
I use Microsoft Publisher because I'm so familiar with the Microsoft product. I find it is very easy to use. I believe Kara has a Mac, so I don't know what she uses to make the flyers, but I find Publisher is very easy to use.
And I know she was trying Canva for a while. I don't know, people said Canva is very easy to use. I think she struggled with it, though, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah. So,
Canva's easy to work with, but I'm not sure. It's just I think for Canva works for just basic images, but you got a background image and you can put some text over it, and I think it works. But yeah, you try to create something more along the lines of a flyer that you can get out of Publisher. That's what I'm not sure it's meant for that.
Yeah, so they do it, and when interns start, in the summer, if interns are with me and we like them after a few weeks and we think they're good to go, we'll teach them how to do it. To just take it off of the plate of Kara and Josie, but we can whip those we are working on a new second-gen restaurant space that's coming available in a hot area in Miami, and I think Kara will have it done in a day. We don't mess around. And again, but we're not. Greg, there are big companies out there who I train for and work for, and they have 3-page flyers or brochures, or I want to. If I was only leasing like Kara, I'd be handing 100 flyers out a week. I don't want 3 pages. I want something that will have good information for the prospect. If I've got a second-gen hair salon or a second-gen restaurant, I want to make sure that I've got a flyer so that I can go and leave that second-gen hair salon flyer at 40 hair salons and get a lease done. One of my partners has a center and had a second-gen hair salon, and he said, we haven't been able to lease it. I go, well, did you do a flyer? And he said, no. I think they're using the regular flyer for the shopping center. And so Kara went and did the flyer. She took pictures of it with the chairs and the mirrors and the cabinetry and the shampoo bowls. And we canvassed about over 2 weeks. We probably hit about 200 hair salons, and we signed a lease. Because the mom and pops don't have time to leave their stores and go looking in windows of vacancies saying, is there a full-service hair salon in here? So I think it's also important to we put in the window of that space, former hair salon with, 10 chairs, 2 shampoo bowls. We put that in kind of like a leasing sign in the window. And what we also did is, this is in a town center type of scenario, so lots of activity on the weekends and the evenings. We turn the lights on, so that, and I do that at most of my properties. I'll pick a vacancy or two, and I'll turn the lights on so that at night it's showcasing the vacancy. Because I'm not there at night showing vacancy, but maybe someone drives through the parking lot and sees the lights on in a vacancy and says, oh, there's a vacancy, and my friend's looking for space, let me tell them.
We used to make flyers. When I was with DDR forever, I made flyers with Corel Draw. I don't even know if that software even exists anymore. We were using graphic design artwork, and this is before Photoshop and that kind of thing. It's interesting that because we could certainly use them on our end, but now we're big, Brookfield's a big corporate entity. So, we'd have to get approval to go get your graphic design approved and all sorts of stuff. But it's good. Just knowing that the software's there and it's really easy to use. Publisher's really easy to use. I'll give you that. So that's good. And the examples are there.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's good that the examples are in the book, and you can kind of use that as a guide. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. But, again, it's just another example of different things that people can use, different tools that are available that people can use to help help lease their shopping centers and increase their occupancy going forward. So
that's the goal.
Any other questions?
Any CRM software that you recommend? This is Carissa, by the way.
Yeah, I used Act for 25 years. I loved Act, but Act became non-helpful when we all got iPhones. So I dragged myself kicking and screaming to change and start researching a new product. And this is where teaching comes in, because I would stand up in front of you guys and go, you have to use the CRM, and I wasn't even using one myself. So shame on me. And I said I'm feeling very guilty, because I know how it helped me for years and years and years when I was, a leasing agent, and that's all I was doing. So I tried Zoho. I had a huge problem with their customer service, because we stopped using Zoho 9 months ago. They're still billing me. So that just shows, I know other people have had good experiences. I did not. So we switched over to Pipedrive, and I like Pipedrive. None of them are perfect. The most expensive one in the land is Salesforce, and if you work for a big company that offers you that, Salesforce is like the Ritz-Carlton or the Cadillac of CRM, and people that use it like it. I know other people use Client Look, and they like that. All I know is you need to have something, and if your company doesn't have one, invest in one yourself. They're not that expensive, and if you canvas and prospect in the numbers that you should be, if you're just a leasing agent, you should be prospecting a couple hundred people a week. You have to have a CRM. because otherwise it's a waste of time because you can't keep all of those prospects in your brain. So I just recommend ClientLook, Pipedrive as two of the least expensive ones, and do the tutorials and see, some of them. Someone just told me yesterday that there's one of them that's offering 6 months free. I go, well, just you just have to see who you are and what you like. I think there's something called Reology maybe, but what I would do if you're on LinkedIn, I would go on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm Retail Leasing Agent. What CRM do you guys like? And you'll get, 40 different responses, and then just go do a tutorial on a couple of them and pick one and go for it and use it.
Okay.
If it's, I agree, Beth. This is Barry. I was going to add in as it relates to CRM, Beth. I wouldn't get too hung up on which you use. It's just use it and input all the information, notes from every contact, and it's kind of the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. You could have the greatest CRM in the world. If you don't use it right or don't use it, it doesn't matter. And you could have a crummy, but if you really input all the information, it'll pay dividends.
Right, and Barry, what percentage of your success do you attribute to your full use of your CRM, your active use of your CRM?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't. That's not why you're successful. But I definitely, if I didn't have one, I'd been out of the business many years ago. I don't think it's possible to be successful in what we do without one.
Yeah, and Barry's the type of guy who's like says, oh, so how was Mario's math test last week? Because I mentioned it on a call when I was on a call, and I can hear him typing away. But there's a saying with CRM, if it's work, it won't work. Because we leasing salespeople don't want to work hard at doing things like that. Now, it does take time, but if you're doing a tutorial and you're confused or it's hard, then move on to the next one. Pipedrive is very easy. If I can use it, Pipedrive, you guys can use Pipedrive. So if you feel like it's too much work, try the next one. But like what Barry said, pick one. And and my friend Hugh Chen, who was, when he's now the president of Saglo and is doing more acquisitions than leasing. So when he was a Rockstar leasing agent, he would say that 80% of his success, 90% of his success had to do with his prospecting and his CRM. So you got to.
Hey Beth,
go ahead.
This is Kevin Cush with the PMAT companies, president of the PMAT companies. Wanted to carry on because I've actually been researching some of the CRM stuff, experimenting and whatnot, and I haven't found anything where they're talking about how they set up their CRM, right? Pipedrive is customizable with the buckets that you can put it into. Maybe it's not an appropriate topic to dive into on this call, but a good source for an additional call, and I'm happy to talk offline with you on this, or maybe it's a podcast or a video that you put out on how you set up that Pipedrive and how that might be useful for other folks to carry on. And then additionally, the software that is offering the 6 months free, that is indeed ClientLook, and that's only for new leasing agents. And that does look pretty customized for the commercial real estate industry.
Well, yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. I've been talking about doing a podcast where I get 3 or 4 people, users, not the companies. Like Rod Santimassimo has done a great video where he has the representatives from the CRM. I want the users to get on a call, on like a Zoom call, and share it with my audience and, all of you guys. Have people say, I use this and this is why I like it and this is how I do it. The challenge I've had is, agents are busy and they're like, well, what is that? Many of them have said to me, well, how's that going to help me?
Sure.
Good karma. It's good karma.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I will. Thanks for that, and I will think about doing something like that in the next few months. But to answer your question, and certainly I can do it for Pipedrive.
Sounds great.
So, Greg, it's 12:21. We're 1 minute over, so I think we need to close out unless anyone else. I'm happy to stay if anyone else has other questions. but I always like to promise to get you guys out and get back to business and back to prospecting and doing deals.
Yeah, so thank you again for your leadership, your guidance, your knowledge. I think this has been valuable for everybody. Would like to recommend that if you have read the book, please go to Amazon, give a review, because it will help others to find the book that's looking around, in Amazon. I think it helps everybody. So please go do that. I need to do that as well. So I will do that today. And I would like to invite everybody to come back next month, February 14th, where we will be talking about The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I'm actually very interested in reading this. I know she's been an industry leader for some time, and obviously, award-winning producer of Grey's Anatomy and other TV and
I
projects.
just started listening to it. It's very interesting, and it's I love it. I've just started listening to it, and I'm really liking it. So I think you guys will like it, and it's something different, for us. But Greg, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And just FYI, you guys, the digital class that I know some of you have already signed up for, we're closing it out on January 31st. So if you know of anyone that wants to take the class, it closes on the 31st of January. So jump on. It's $497. It's 4 modules. It covers market studies, how to target tenants, and canvassing. And it's got 20 handouts. And the people that have already been doing it for 3 days are sending me rave reviews. So if you have people on your team that need a refresher or that are rookies, it's a great class. We put a lot of time and energy into it. I think you guys will like it. So, Greg, thank you so much. I really appreciate you interviewing me. And I'll see you guys, maybe some of you at the Nexus next week in Miami, ICSC.